The hottest day of the summer had pushed everyone indoors. But Deputy Sheriff Ji-Hoon, Kellan, Park was driving down Route 7 with the windows cracked open, trying to escape his own engagement party. The celebration at Park Lodge was everything his family wanted. Wealthy guests, expensive decorations, important people shaking hands and talking business. It felt impossible to breathe. So he had left for a while. Just a short drive, he told himself. Just enough time to clear his head. The road stretched ahead under the burning sun. Then something caught his eye. A woman. She was walking along the dusty shoulder of the highway carrying 2 heavy bags of laundry. 2 small children walked beside her. Ji-Hoon slowed his cruiser. Nobody should have been out in that heat. Especially not with kids. He pulled over. The woman kept walking. "Ma'am," he called through the open window. "Do you need a ride?" She froze. For a second, she didn't move. Then she slowly turned around. The world stopped. His hand tightened around the steering wheel. V. Crowder. 7 years. 7 years since she disappeared. 7 years since she left without an explanation. 7 years since she broke his heart and vanished from Stonecut County. His mouth went dry. V? Her face lost all color. The bags nearly slipped from her hands. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Neither of them seemed capable of speaking. Then Ji-Hoon noticed the children. A boy. A girl. Twins. They couldn't have been older than 5. The boy stared directly at him. Ji-Hoon's chest tightened. The child had his eyes. The exact same eyes. The same shape. The same intense stare. The same look he saw every morning in the mirror. His pulse pounded. Then his gaze shifted to the little girl. She stood close to V. A truck roared past on the highway. The girl immediately covered both ears. Her shoulders stiffened. Her eyes squeezed shut. Ji-Hoon felt sick. His younger sister had done that her entire life. The same reaction. The same sensitivity. The same posture. The same struggle. No, this couldn't be happening. V grabbed the children's hands. "Come on," she said quickly. She turned away. She was leaving. Again. V, wait. She didn't stop. Dark clouds rolled across the sky without warning. A loud crack of thunder echoed overhead. The twins jumped. The wind hit first. Then rain crashed down. Within seconds, all 4 of them were soaked. Amber pressed herself against V's side. Asher wrapped both arms around his mother's waist. Another thunderclap shook the air. The children were shivering. Ji-Hoon opened the back door of the cruiser. "Get inside." V didn't move. Her eyes were filled with fear. Not confusion. Not surprise. Fear. The rain kept pouring. The children trembled harder. Ji-Hoon looked directly at her. "I'm not asking you for answers right now." His voice was quiet. "Just keep them warm." V looked at her children. Then at the storm. Then back at him. Finally, she guided Asher and Amber into the back seat. A second later, she climbed in beside them. The door closed. And for the first time in 7 years, Ji-Hoon Park sat only a few feet away from the woman who had disappeared with his entire future. But what he was about to learn would be far worse than anything he had imagined. Before we find out what happens next, take a moment to support the channel. If you're enjoying the story, please like this video, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I always love seeing how many different places our community comes from. Now, let's get back to the story. Because sitting in the back of that cruiser were 2 children who looked far too familiar, and Ji-Hoon was finally about to hear the truth. 7 years earlier, Stonecut County already knew exactly where everyone belonged. The Park family sat at the very top. Everyone else lived beneath them. Ji-Hoon Park was supposed to follow the path his family had prepared for him. He was the town's favorite son. He came from money, influence, and generations of power. Then he met V. Crowder. V had spent most of her life avoiding people like the Parks. Her grandfather worked the stables on the Park estate. He worked long days and came home exhausted, but he raised her with pride. V knew exactly how the town saw her. Ji-Hoon didn't care. It started with simple conversations. A few stolen moments. A few walks that lasted longer than either of them planned. Then neither of them wanted to stay away anymore. That summer became theirs. They met whenever they could. At the lake. Along quiet roads. Inside his truck after long evenings together. For the first time in his life, Ji-Hoon felt like he was making choices for himself instead of following orders from everyone around him. V felt seen. Not judged. Not measured by her last name or where she lived. Just seen. One night, lying in the back of his truck beneath the open sky, Ji-Hoon held her hand tightly. "I don't care what anybody says," he told her. "They're going to say plenty. Let them." V smiled. "You make everything sound easy." "No. I just know what I want." She looked at him. "And what's that?" "You." The answer came without hesitation. V felt tears filling her eyes. Not because she doubted him. Because she believed him. They talked about the future. About a home. About growing old together. About building a life that belonged to them. Neither of them knew how quickly everything would fall apart. Slowly, under the starry night, the distance between their bodies disappeared. It started with a soft kiss that soon turned heated and passionate with bodies pressed against each other. Clothes disappeared until he saw her in a way no man ever had, and it was the best night of their lives. Weeks later, V stared at the pregnancy test in silence. Her hands trembled. She sat on the edge of her bed trying to process what she was seeing. A baby. Then another shock followed. Twins. Fear hit first. Then happiness. Then fear again. She wanted to tell Ji-Hoon immediately. She imagined his face. She imagined him lifting her off the ground and laughing. Instead, disaster arrived first. A black SUV pulled up outside her grandfather's trailer. Ji-Hoon's father stepped out. The local sheriff stepped out beside him. Neither man came to celebrate. Neither man came with kindness. They entered the trailer and closed the door. V's grandfather stood frozen. Ji-Hoon's father looked directly at her. "We know about the pregnancy." V felt her stomach tighten. The sheriff folded his arms. "You have two choices." "What choices?" she asked. The older man didn't blink. "You disappear." V stared at him. "What?" "You leave town." "I'm not leaving." His expression hardened. "You will." The sheriff stepped closer. "If you stay, things become difficult." The threat was obvious. V looked toward her grandfather. The old man's face had gone pale. Ji-Hoon's father continued. "We can make criminal charges appear." V's heartbeat quickened. "We can make sure your grandfather never works another day in this county." Her grandfather lowered his eyes. "We can destroy Ji-Hoon's future before it starts." Every word landed harder than the last. "You don't get to decide our lives," V said. The sheriff laughed. "That's exactly what we do." The room became silent. Cruel people often expect tears. V didn't cry. She sat there listening while they explained how easily they could ruin everyone she loved. By the time they left, she already knew she had lost. Not because they were right. Because they had all the power. Days later, she packed her things. She planned one final call. One final conversation. Ji-Hoon deserved the truth. He deserved to know about his children. Her fingers shook as she dialed. The call connected. But Ji-Hoon never answered. Someone else did. Kim Hoon. At the time, Kim was simply another woman from one of the county's wealthy families. V immediately frowned. "Why are you answering his phone?" Kim's voice stayed calm. "Because he doesn't want to talk to you." "Put him on." "No." V's heart dropped. "I need to tell him something important." Kim laughed softly. "Whatever story you're selling won't work. I'm pregnant." The line became quiet. Then Kim spoke again. "Leave him alone." The call ended. V tried again. And again. And again. Nothing. What she never knew was that Kim deleted the call records afterward. Then she found Ji-Hoon. She told him V had accepted money from his father. She told him V had walked away willingly. She told him V never loved him. Ji-Hoon wanted to reject every word. But V was gone. No calls. No messages. No explanation. Only silence. Eventually, anger replaced hope. Pain became resentment. And one night, sitting alone, he blocked her number. For 7 years, he believed she had chosen money over him. For 7 years, V believed he had abandoned her after learning the truth. Both of them suffered. Both of them lost everything. And now, 7 years later, they were sitting inside the same cruiser while a storm battered the windows outside. Neither of them knew that the lies holding their lives apart were about to begin falling apart. The storm only got worse. Rain hammered against the cruiser. The road ahead was becoming impossible to see. Ji-Hoon tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "There's a cabin about 10 minutes from here," he said without looking back. "We'll wait out the storm there." V immediately stiffened. "No." The answer came fast. Ji-Hoon glanced at her through the mirror. "The roads are flooding." "I said no." Another crack of thunder exploded overhead. Amber jumped and buried her face against V's shoulder. Asher moved closer to his sister. Ji-Hoon swallowed. "This isn't about us right now." V looked out the window. She hated that he was right. For 7 years she had survived by trusting nobody. Especially not him. But her children were soaked and frightened. A few minutes later, the cruiser pulled up outside a secluded cabin surrounded by trees. Nobody spoke as they stepped inside. The silence felt heavy. Ji-Hoon grabbed blankets from a nearby closet. He handed them over. V accepted them without thanking him. She immediately wrapped both children up and checked their faces. "Are you cold?" Asher shook his head. Amber didn't answer. V brushed damp hair away from her daughter's forehead. "You okay, baby?" Amber leaned into her. Still silent. Ji-Hoon watched from across the room. Every movement V made centered around the children. Every decision. Every thought. Everything. She had built her entire life around protecting them. Without him. The realization hurt more than he expected. Another violent boom shook the cabin. Amber screamed. The sound tore through the room. She clamped both hands over her ears and dropped to the floor. Her breathing became uneven. Her whole body tightened. V was beside her instantly. "It's okay." Amber cried harder. "It's okay, sweetheart." Nothing changed. Another thunderclap hit. Amber's panic escalated. V looked terrified. Not embarrassed. Not frustrated. Terrified. Because she knew exactly what could happen when the episode became too overwhelming. Ji-Hoon was already moving. V immediately stepped between him and Amber. "No." Her voice came out sharp. "Don't." Ji-Hoon stopped. "I know what's happening." "You don't." "I do." "No, you don't." V's eyes burned with anger. People always think they understand until they see it. Then they stare. Then they judge. Ji-Hoon ignored the accusation. His attention remained on Amber. Carefully, he crouched a few feet away. Not too close. Not too far. Exactly where he used to sit with his younger sister. Amber's crying continued. Ji-Hoon lowered his voice. "Amber." No response. "Amber." His tone remained calm. Steady. Patient. The little girl kept her eyes shut. Ji-Hoon reached into his pocket and pulled out his keychain. A small rubber sheriff badge hung from it. He placed it on the floor between them. Nothing more. No sudden movement. No pressure. Just an object. A familiar technique. Something predictable. Something simple. Slowly, Amber's crying began to lessen. V stared. Ji-Hoon remained where he was. "Amber, you don't have to look at me." The little girl's breathing started to slow. "You don't have to talk either." Another minute passed. Then another. The storm still raged outside. Inside, Amber's panic gradually eased. Finally, her eyes opened. She noticed the keychain. Then she noticed Ji-Hoon. He didn't move. Didn't rush. Didn't overwhelm her. Amber looked down at his hand resting on the floor. Carefully, she reached forward. Her tiny fingers wrapped around his index finger. The room became completely still. Ji-Hoon froze. V stopped breathing. Asher's eyes widened. Amber held on. Not tightly. Just enough. Trust. A tiny amount. But trust all the same. Ji-Hoon felt emotion hit him so hard he almost looked away. Instead, he stayed exactly where he was. For Amber. Only for Amber. V couldn't understand what she was seeing. Nobody outside her family knew those techniques. Nobody. Yet he had known exactly what to do. Exactly what Amber needed. Exactly how to reach her. The wall she had spent 7 years building around herself suddenly felt unstable. And that terrified her. Because this was the man she had forced herself to hate. The man she had blamed during every lonely night. The man who was never there when the twins were sick. Never there when bills piled up. Never there when she cried herself to sleep wondering how she would survive another week. Her chest tightened. Anger rushed back before anything else could. She stood abruptly. What gives you the right? Ji-Hoon looked up. V's eyes were filled with fury. What gives you the right to act like this? He slowly rose to his feet. V. No. Her voice shook. You don't get to stand here acting like some caring father. Ji-Hoon flinched. You blocked me. The words landed hard. You erased me. V pointed toward the twins. You weren't there for any of this. He opened his mouth. She didn't let him speak. For 7 years I carried everything alone. Tears filled her eyes. I called you. Ji-Hoon froze. I called because I needed you. Her voice broke. I called because I was pregnant. The room went silent. I called because those babies deserved a father. Ji-Hoon's face drained of color. V wiped at her eyes angrily. And what did you do? Her voice dropped. You blocked my number. Every word cut deeper than the last. You decided I wasn't worth fighting for. Ji-Hoon stood motionless. You traded me for a rich fiancé and a comfortable life. V looked directly at him. I lost everything. The pain in her voice was impossible to miss. And you didn't even care enough to ask why I disappeared. Ji-Hoon couldn't speak. The accusation hung between them. You blocked me. You weren't there. You traded me for a rich fiancé. Every sentence stayed in his head. His chest felt tight. None of this made sense. None of it matched the story he had lived with for 7 years. He looked at V. You took the money. The words came out rough. V stared at him. What? My father paid you. The anger in his voice grew. That's what happened. V looked stunned. Then furious. No. That's what I was told. No. You disappeared. No. Her voice echoed through the cabin. Amber jumped. Asher immediately moved closer to his sister. V lowered her tone, but the rage remained. There was no money. Ji-Hoon shook his head. That's impossible. No, what's impossible is what they did to me. The room fell silent. V pointed toward the door. Your father came to my grandfather's trailer. Ji-Hoon's face changed. The sheriff came too. His stomach dropped. They sat in our living room and threatened us. No. Yes. Her answer came instantly. They said they would destroy my grandfather. Ji-Hoon stared. They said they would make up criminal charges. His breathing slowed. They said they would bury your career before it even started. The color drained from his face. V laughed bitterly. You think I left because somebody handed me money? Her eyes filled with tears. We barely had enough food some weeks. She pointed at herself. Do you really think I would have walked away from you for a check? Ji-Hoon couldn't answer. Because he knew her. He knew the woman she had been. V took a shaky breath. I loved you. The words hurt more than the shouting. I was carrying your children. Ji-Hoon closed his eyes. I was terrified. V's voice broke. But I still tried to reach you. His eyes opened immediately. What? I called. The room became still. I called over and over. Ji-Hoon stared at her. I begged for help. His pulse pounded. No. I did. V. I called the day I left. Her tears finally fell. I called because I wanted you to know. Ji-Hoon took a step backward. No. You never answered. His mind was racing now. Pieces of old memories started moving. Things he had never questioned. Things he had accepted. That's not possible. It happened. No. V folded her arms tightly. You don't have to believe me. Ji-Hoon suddenly looked at her. The phone. She frowned. What? The phone you used. Her expression changed. Why? Do you still have it? V looked confused. Why does that matter? Please. The desperation in his voice surprised even him. Do you still have it? For a moment she said nothing. Then she walked toward one of her bags. After digging through it, she pulled out an old phone. The device looked worn. The screen had scratches. The case was faded. Ji-Hoon stared at it. You kept it? V shrugged. It was the last thing I had from back then. The answer hurt. She handed it over. Ji-Hoon sat down. His hand shook. The phone still worked. Slowly, he opened the old call history. V stood across from him. Watching. Waiting. The date appeared. 7 years ago. The exact week she disappeared. His breathing became uneven. There it was. His number. Again. And again. And again. Multiple outgoing calls. The timestamps were all there. V wasn't lying. She had called. A lot. His heart started pounding harder. He looked closer. One specific call stood out. The final call. The one she claimed someone answered. His mind immediately went back 7 years. Back to that day. Back to that exact afternoon. He remembered where he had been. Not at the estate. Not anywhere near his phone. He had been away with friends helping prepare for a local event. His phone had been left behind. At the family estate. Ji-Hoon froze. His face lost all expression. V noticed immediately. What is it? He didn't answer. His memory kept unfolding. His father had been out that afternoon too. His mother had attended a charity event. The household staff had left early. Only one person had been at the estate. Only one. His stomach turned. No. V frowned. What? Ji-Hoon looked down at the phone again. Then back at her. Then down again. The answer was staring directly at him. The final piece. The missing piece. The thing that had never made sense. The call had been answered. But not by him. The only person there had been Kim. His fiancée. The woman he was supposed to marry tomorrow. His chest tightened. Suddenly he remembered conversations. Comments she had made. How quickly she always changed the subject whenever V's name came up. How she insisted V had never loved him. How certain she sounded every single time. Too certain. His breathing became shallow. Oh my God. V's face hardened. What? Ji-Hoon slowly stood. The phone nearly slipped from his hand. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Then horror. Then guilt. A crushing amount of guilt. For 7 years he had hated V. For 7 years he had blamed her. For 7 years he had believed she abandoned him. But she hadn't. She had been trying to reach him. Trying to tell him about their children. Trying to ask for help. And someone had made sure he never heard her voice. Someone had manipulated him. Someone had destroyed both of their lives. Ji-Hoon looked at V. His voice barely came out. Kim answered that call. And in that moment, he realized he had been tricked into abandoning the woman he loved and the children he never knew existed. Nobody spoke for several seconds. The storm still battered the cabin. Ji-Hoon stood motionless. Then he grabbed his keys. V frowned. What are you doing? His jaw tightened. Fixing this. There is no fixing 7 years. He looked at her. For the first time since she had seen him again, there was no confusion in his eyes. Only certainty. Maybe not. He glanced toward Asher and Amber. But I'm done letting other people decide what happens to my family. The word family hit V hard. Before she could answer, he was already moving. The drive back to Park Lodge felt endless. Nobody talked much. Asher sat quietly. Amber leaned against V. Ji-Hoon kept both hands on the wheel. His engagement party was still happening. His fiancée was still celebrating. His father was still smiling in front of cameras. And none of them knew what was coming. By the time they arrived, the storm had begun to weaken. The lights of Park Lodge glowed against the dark evening sky. Luxury cars filled the parking area. Music drifted from inside. V looked at the building and felt sick. This is a mistake. Ji-Hoon didn't answer. It doesn't change what happened. Still no answer. Ji-Hoon. Finally, he looked at her. It changes everything. He got out of the vehicle. V stayed behind with the twins. Her stomach twisted as she watched him walk toward the entrance. The doors opened. The noise from the celebration spilled outside. Laughter. Conversations. Glasses clinking. People enjoying a future built on lies. Inside the ballroom, hundreds of guests filled the room. Local politicians. Business owners. Reporters. the wealthiest families in Stone-Cut County. At the center stood Kim. Beautiful, elegant, smiling. Beside her stood Ji-Hoon's parents. Proud, confident, certain they controlled everything. Then the room began to quiet. People noticed Ji-Hoon. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't celebrating. Something was wrong. Conversations slowly died. Kim brightened when she saw him. There you are. Ji-Hoon walked past her, straight toward the stage. Confusion spread through the ballroom. He climbed the steps. A few guests laughed nervously. Someone assumed he was about to make a romantic speech. They were wrong. Ji-Hoon grabbed the microphone. The room fell silent. His father immediately sensed danger. Ji-Hoon. The warning in his voice was obvious. Ji-Hoon ignored him. He looked across the crowd, then directly at Kim. I need everyone to hear this. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. For the first time in his life, Ji-Hoon stopped caring what any of them thought. My engagement ends tonight. Gasps filled the ballroom. Kim's face lost all color. What? Ji-Hoon pulled the boutonniere from his jacket. The flower landed at Kim's feet. The room erupted with whispers. Ji-Hoon, stop this right now, his father snapped. No. The single word echoed through the room. Kim stepped forward. Whatever this is, we can discuss it privately. Ji-Hoon laughed bitterly. Private is how you got away with it. The room became still again. Kim froze. Ji-Hoon pointed at her. 7 years ago, a woman called me because she was carrying my children. A shocked murmur spread through the crowd. You answered that call. Kim's face went blank. You deleted it. Silence. You lied to me. His voice grew harder. You convinced me the woman I loved abandoned me. Ji-Hoon. Don't. The sharpness in his tone stopped her immediately. He turned toward his father. The older man's expression had darkened. And you. Every eye in the room shifted. Ji-Hoon pointed directly at him. You threatened a pregnant teenager. His mother looked horrified. Several reporters immediately raised their phones. You threatened her grandfather. His father stepped forward. Think carefully about what you're saying. I've spent 7 years not thinking carefully enough. The ballroom became completely silent. Ji-Hoon's voice remained steady. You used your power to separate us. His father didn't deny it. That hurt almost as much as the truth itself. You stole 7 years from me. Ji-Hoon looked around the room. At every wealthy family, every influential guest, every person who spent years praising the park name. This family built its reputation by crushing people who couldn't fight back. Nobody interrupted. Nobody defended them. Because everyone knew there was truth in his words. Then Ji-Hoon looked toward the ballroom entrance. V stood there, holding Amber's hand. Asher standing beside her. Uncertain. Ready to leave if things got worse. Ji-Hoon's eyes softened. The entire room followed his gaze. More whispers spread. The resemblance between Asher and Ji-Hoon was impossible to ignore. Ji-Hoon stepped off the stage, then crossed the room. Straight toward them. Every camera followed. Every guest watched. He stopped beside V. For a moment neither spoke. Then Ji-Hoon turned back toward the crowd. His voice carried through the ballroom. 7 years ago, I promised this woman I would choose her. V looked at him. I failed. The honesty stunned the room. I believed lies. His eyes moved toward Asher and Amber. And because of that, I lost 7 years with my children. The crowd gasped again. Ji-Hoon placed a protective hand behind the twins. Asher and Amber are my children. Nobody missed the pride in his voice. Nobody missed the emotion. They are my family. His father looked furious. Ji-Hoon didn't care. He kept his attention on the room. Everything I should have protected was standing outside my life while I celebrated inside this building. His voice lowered. But not anymore. Then, in front of the entire county, the media, his parents, and the woman he had been expected to marry, Ji-Hoon publicly declared his love for V and announced Asher and Amber as his sole heirs, fracturing the Park family dynasty in a single act of defiance. The ballroom exploded into noise. Guests were talking over each other. Reporters rushed forward. Kim stood frozen. Ji-Hoon's father looked ready to tear the room apart. But V wasn't looking at any of them. She was looking at the exits. Her breathing became shallow. Her hands tightened around the twins. The room suddenly felt dangerous. Not because of Ji-Hoon. Because of what would come next. She knew powerful people. She knew how they reacted when they lost control. Humiliation made people reckless. Especially people who had spent their entire lives getting whatever they wanted. Amber pressed closer to her. Asher looked up. Mom? Vi immediately made a decision. We're leaving. The twins didn't argue. They trusted her. She guided them through the crowd. Nobody noticed at first. All eyes remained fixed on the stage. Fixed on the destruction of the Park family's perfect image. By the time anyone saw them leave, they were already outside. Rain poured heavily across the parking lot. Vi didn't stop. She kept moving, one step after another. Away from Park Lodge. Away from the cameras. Away from the Park family. Away from Ji-Hoon. Her heart hurt. That made her angrier. Because part of her wanted to believe him. Part of her wanted to believe the man she had loved still existed. But love had not protected her 7 years ago. Love had not paid bills. Love had not helped her raise twins alone. Fear pushed her forward. Route 7 wasn't far. There was a bus station outside the county. If she could reach it, she could leave before the retaliation started. Before lawyers appeared. Before threats arrived. Before someone decided to punish her all over again. The rain soaked them within minutes. Asher stumbled. Vi immediately grabbed his hand tighter. We're almost there. The words were more hope than certainty. Back at Park Lodge, Ji-Hoon finally stepped away from the crowd. His eyes searched for Vi. She wasn't beside the entrance. He checked the hallway. Nothing. His stomach dropped. Where's Vi? Nobody answered. Then he saw the empty space where she had been standing. A terrible feeling hit him. No. Without another word, he ran. Ignoring reporters. Ignoring questions. Ignoring his family. He sprinted through the doors into the storm. Rain hit his face immediately. He scanned the parking lot. Nothing. His pulse raced. He jumped into his vehicle and drove. Route 7. The thought appeared instantly. That was where he had found her before. That was where she would go now. The road stretched endlessly through the storm. Then he saw them. 3 figures walking along the muddy shoulder. A woman. 2 small children. Ji-Hoon slammed on the brakes. Before the vehicle fully stopped, he was already opening the door. Vi. She froze. Then immediately started walking faster. Not running. Just trying to get away. Ji-Hoon chased after them through the rain. Vi. She refused to look back. His chest hurt. Not from running. From knowing she still didn't trust him. He reached them several seconds later. Without hesitation, he pulled off his deputy badge. The metal hit the mud. Then he pulled out his keys. Those landed beside it. Vi finally turned. Confusion crossed her face. Ji-Hoon wasn't finished. He dropped directly to his knees. The mud soaked through his clothes instantly. The rain poured over him. He didn't care. Asher stared. Amber stared. Vi stood completely still. Ji-Hoon looked up at her. His eyes were full of tears. Not controlled tears. Not hidden tears. The kind that came when someone finally stopped pretending they were okay. I failed you. Vi's expression hardened. He continued anyway. I failed all 3 of you. The words came out broken. I wasn't there. Rain ran down his face. I missed every birthday. His voice shook. Every first step. He looked at Asher. Every scraped knee. Then Amber. Every difficult night. His chest rose sharply. And that's my fault. Vi swallowed hard. Ji-Hoon lowered his head briefly. Then forced himself to continue. I should have protected you. His eyes found hers again. I should have fought harder. The pain in his voice was impossible to miss. I should have questioned everything. Vi's hands trembled. Ji-Hoon reached into his pocket. He pulled out his wallet. Then held it out. Take it. She frowned. What? Take it. No. Take the car too. Vi stared at him. The house. His voice cracked. The money. He placed everything in front of her. Take all of it. The twins looked confused. Ji-Hoon barely noticed. Use whatever keeps them safe. V couldn't speak. He looked directly at her. If you still want to leave, leave. The words nearly destroyed him. I won't stop you. His shoulders shook. But don't spend another night wondering how to feed them. Tears streamed down his face. Don't spend another night carrying everything alone. V felt her chest tighten painfully. Ji-Hoon remained on his knees. The rain kept falling. Cars occasionally passed in the distance. Nobody else mattered. Only this moment. Only these 4 people standing on the same road where everything had started. Ji-Hoon's voice dropped lower. I was supposed to be their father. He looked toward the twins. I wasn't. Then back to V. I was supposed to be the man you could trust. His face twisted with regret. I wasn't that either. V couldn't look away. For the first time, she wasn't seeing the deputy sheriff. She wasn't seeing a park. She wasn't seeing the town's golden boy. She was seeing a man facing every terrible thing he had done wrong. Ji-Hoon stayed in the mud. Stayed on his knees. And with nothing left to hide, he swore he would spend every second of his remaining life making it up to her. V did not forgive him that night. She did not run into his arms. She did not tell him everything would be okay. 7 years could not be erased by tears in the rain. The hurt was still there. The betrayal was still there. The loneliness was still there. Ji-Hoon understood that. For the first time in his life, he stopped asking for immediate answers. Instead, he decided to prove every word he had spoken on that muddy road. The very next morning, he started cutting away every part of the life that had helped destroy theirs. His father called repeatedly. Ji-Hoon ignored every call. His mother left messages. He didn't listen. Lawyers contacted him. He refused to meet them. Then he sat down with legal documents. Page after page. Signature after signature. He gave up his claim to the park fortune. The inheritance worth millions. The land. The investments. The family trust. Everything. The process shocked almost everyone in Stonecut County. People thought he was bluffing. They thought he would come to his senses. He didn't. When the final papers were completed, Ji-Hoon felt something unexpected. Relief. The wealth had never belonged to him without conditions. Now those conditions were gone. His father exploded when he heard the news. Ji-Hoon didn't care. For years he had obeyed. For years he had accepted things he should have challenged. That time was over. The next decision came just as quickly. He resigned from the sheriff's department. The office that had once made him proud now reminded him of everything he had ignored. The badge carried too much history. Too many compromises. Too many people protected because of power. Too many people hurt because nobody stood up to it. His resignation spread through town almost immediately. People whispered. Some called him reckless. Others called him foolish. Ji-Hoon kept moving forward. He found work as a security guard. The pay was far lower. The hours were worse. The job was exhausting. He accepted it without complaint. Every shift reminded him that he no longer had special treatment. No family influence. No shortcuts. No powerful last name opening doors. Just work. At the same time, he rented a small apartment. The building was old. The rooms were cramped. The furniture barely fit. The heater worked when it felt like working. The walls were thin. None of it mattered. The apartment sat directly across from the diner where V worked. That part mattered. Not because he planned to force his way back into her life. Because he wanted to be nearby if she ever needed help. Weeks passed. Then months. Ji-Hoon never pushed. Never demanded conversations. Never asked for another chance. Every night he finished work and waited outside the diner. Sometimes it rained. Sometimes the wind cut through his jacket. Sometimes the temperature dropped low enough to make his hands ache. Still, he waited. V noticed. At first, she hated it. She thought it was another performance. Another attempt to wear down her resistance. But Ji-Hoon never asked for anything. When her shift ended, he simply stood up. Ready to head home? Sometimes she ignored him. Sometimes she nodded. Sometimes she walked ahead while he stayed several steps behind. He accepted all of it. The important thing was getting her home safely. Nothing more. Nothing less. The town had started talking. The public destruction of the park engagement had made headlines. People stared. People judged. People gossiped. Ji-Hoon made sure V never had to walk through it alone. Meanwhile, the twins slowly became a larger part of his world. He didn't try to buy their affection. He knew money couldn't fix lost years. So he gave them something else. Time. Effort. Attention. After work, he spent hours teaching himself woodworking. His first attempts were terrible. Crooked edges. Uneven pieces. Splintered corners. He kept practicing. Eventually, he built small toys. Simple things. Cars. Animals. Puzzle blocks. Every item was sanded carefully by hand. Every piece was safe. Every piece was made with patience. He never handed them directly to the twins. Instead, he left them quietly on the porch. No speeches. No pressure. Just a small note. For Asher. Hope you like this one. For Amber. Thought this might help. The sensory books took even more effort. Ji-Hoon researched constantly. He remembered parts of his sister's childhood, but knew every child was different. He read articles. Spoke with specialists. Asked questions. Learned. Then he assembled books filled with textures, activities, and calming exercises. Things Amber could explore at her own pace. V found one package one morning before work. She opened it carefully. Inside sat another handmade book. Hours of effort were visible in every page. No shortcuts. No expensive purchases. Just work. Real work. At the bottom was a small handwritten note. Not a love letter. Not a plea for forgiveness. Just a single sentence. Still learning how to show up. V sat quietly holding the note. For 7 years, she had survived on promises from nobody. Now she was watching a man stop talking about change and start living it. Day after day. Night after night. Without applause. Without guarantees. Without knowing if she would ever forgive him. And still, he kept showing up. The retaliation came exactly the way V feared it would. Not with apologies. Not with regret. With lawyers. Official documents arrived first. Then court notices. Then accusations. Every single claim painted V as an unfit mother. The papers described her as unstable. Financially irresponsible. Unable to provide a proper future. Each sentence felt designed to humiliate her. To reduce 7 years of sacrifice into a few cruel paragraphs. V sat at her kitchen table reading the documents while her hands trembled. Asher and Amber were asleep. The apartment was quiet. But inside her chest, panic was building. She knew who was behind it. Ji-Hoon's father. The man who had destroyed her life once before. Now he was trying to take her children. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled quickly. The Park family wanted speed. Speed gave people less time to prepare. Less time to fight back. The courthouse was packed on the day of the hearing. Reporters filled the hallways. Residents of Stonecut County crowded every available seat. People wanted to see what happened when one of the most powerful families in town went to war against a single mother. V sat at the defense table. She wore her best clothes. They still looked modest compared to the expensive suits surrounding the Park family. Across the room sat Ji-Hoon's father. Calm. Confident. Certain he would win. The sight of him made V sick. His lawyers stood one after another. Polished. Prepared. Aggressive. They presented financial records. Employment history. Housing reports. Every hardship V had ever endured became a weapon against her. The message was obvious. Poor mothers didn't deserve children. At least not according to them. Then V was called to the stand. She walked forward. Sat down. Took a breath. The questioning began immediately. Miss Crowder, how many jobs have you worked during the last 7 years? She answered. Another question followed. Then another. Then another. No pause. No mercy. They pushed harder. Have you ever missed a rent payment? Have you ever relied on government assistance? Can you guarantee future financial stability? V tried to stay calm. Tried to stay composed. But every question carried the same insult. You are not enough. You never were. One lawyer leaned forward. Wouldn't it be fair to say these children would enjoy a better life with greater resources? The courtroom became quiet. V looked down. Then back up. My children don't need wealth. The lawyer smiled. They need security. The smile widened. And can you honestly provide that? The cruelty was deliberate. The goal wasn't information. The goal was damage. V felt tears gathering. Not because she was ashamed. Because she was exhausted. 7 years of fighting. 7 years of surviving. And now strangers were trying to turn her struggle into evidence against her. The lawyer saw the tears. He pressed harder. Ms. Crowder, isn't it true that your current income places your household below? Enough. The voice echoed through the courtroom. Everyone turned. Ji-Hoon was standing. His expression was cold. Not angry. Determined. The judge looked at him. Mr. Park? Ji-Hoon walked forward. In his hand was a locked briefcase. His father's face changed immediately. For the first time all day, fear appeared. Real fear. Ji-Hoon placed the briefcase on the evidence table. The room became silent. What is this? The judge asked. Ji-Hoon looked directly at her. The truth. His father stood abruptly. Don't do this. Ji-Hoon didn't even glance at him. For years that voice had controlled him. Today it didn't. The briefcase opened. Folders filled the interior. Documents. Financial records. Contracts. Bank transfers. Years of evidence. The courtroom watched as Ji-Hoon began placing files onto the table. One after another. His father's attorney immediately objected. Ji-Hoon kept going. This shows illegal payments made to public officials. Another folder. This details corporate intimidation used against local business owners. Another. This documents bribery. The room erupted into whispers. The judge ordered silence. Ji-Hoon continued. Every page exposed another secret. Every file damaged the Park empire further. Then he reached the final folder. The one that mattered most. His hands tightened. This contains records connected to threats made against V. Crowder 7 years ago. The courtroom froze. V stopped breathing. Ji-Hoon looked directly at her. Then toward the judge. My father threatened her family. His voice never wavered. He threatened her future. Another document landed on the table. He threatened mine. Across the courtroom, his father looked defeated for the first time in his life. Ji-Hoon continued speaking. Every sentence carried consequences. He knew that. Some of these records implicated him too. Not as an architect, but as someone who looked away. Someone who failed to ask questions. Someone who benefited from corruption. The judge understood immediately. So you're aware this testimony could expose you to criminal liability as well? The room became still. Ji-Hoon nodded. Yes. His attorney looked horrified. V looked stunned. The judge gave him one final opportunity. You understand the risk? Yes. You may lose everything. Ji-Hoon glanced toward Asher and Amber sitting beside V. Then at V herself. His answer came without hesitation. I already lost everything once. Silence filled the courtroom. Ji-Hoon turned back toward the judge. If telling the truth makes me a disgraced man, then so be it. His voice remained steady. If it leaves me broke, so be it. He looked toward his father. Then toward the evidence covering the table. Finally, he looked at V. But my children will not grow up under threats. The courtroom remained completely silent. And V. Crowder will never stand alone against this family again. With that, Ji-Hoon finished destroying the empire that had defined his entire life, choosing to become a disgraced and penniless man if it meant V and the twins walked away free and protected. The courthouse doors opened to chaos. Reporters rushed forward. Cameras flashed nonstop. Questions were shouted from every direction. Ji-Hoon stepped outside first. He didn't slow down. He didn't look for support. He just stood on the steps and faced everything he had caused. The Park family name was already collapsing behind him. His father was being taken aside by officers. Lawyers were arguing in panic. People who had spent their lives protecting that empire were now turning on each other. Ji-Hoon had no expression. No celebration. Only exhaustion. He had nothing left. No title. No inheritance. No position. Just the truth he had chosen to expose. V came out moments later with Asher and Amber. She stopped when she saw him. For a second, neither of them moved. The noise around them faded into the background. V's hands tightened around the twins. She looked at Ji-Hoon's face. Really looked at him. There was no Park family protection anymore. No power. No status. Just a man standing in front of the consequences of everything he destroyed and rebuilt in the same breath. Her voice came out low. You really did it. Ji-Hoon nodded once. I said I would. V's eyes filled again. Not with fear this time. With something heavier. Something she had not allowed herself to feel for years. Ji-Hoon stepped down from the courthouse steps slowly. Each step looked heavier than the last. When he reached them, he stopped. He didn't reach for her. He didn't ask for anything. He just stood there. V looked at his hands. They were empty. No badge. No money. No protection. Just him. Her breathing shook. You lost everything. Ji-Hoon answered honestly. Yes. A pause. Then he added. But you didn't. V shook her head slightly. I don't know how to live after this. Ji-Hoon's voice stayed steady. You don't have to do it alone anymore. The words hit harder than anything in court. V looked at Asher and Amber. Then back at Ji-Hoon. 7 years of anger. 7 years of survival. 7 years of silence between them. It all pressed down at once. Her walls didn't fall quickly. They broke slowly. Piece by piece. Until there was nothing left holding them up. She stepped forward. Ji-Hoon didn't move. V reached out. Her hand touched his. He closed his fingers around hers carefully, like he was afraid she would disappear again. V's voice broke. You don't get to leave again. Ji-Hoon shook his head. I won't. That was all he said. Then V pulled him forward. And kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't planned. It was 7 years of pain finally finding a place to land. Ji-Hoon didn't hesitate. He held her like he had been waiting his entire life for that exact moment. Behind them, cameras kept flashing. Voices kept shouting. But none of it reached them anymore. Because in that moment, nothing outside them mattered. When they finally separated, V kept her forehead against his for a second longer. Then she looked at the twins. We're going home. Ji-Hoon nodded. Together. 6 months later, the noise of Stonecut County felt like a distant memory. The park name no longer controlled anything. Ji-Hoon no longer wore a badge. He worked small jobs. Simple work. Honest work. V ran the diner during the day. Life was not easy. But it was quiet in a way they had never known before. On a warm afternoon, they held a small backyard wedding. No reporters. No luxury guests. Only a few chairs. A few close people. And 2 children standing close to the front. V walked down a short path and stopped in front of Ji-Hoon. This time, there was no fear in her eyes. Only certainty. They exchanged vows without ceremony, words trying to sound perfect. Just truth. Asher stood beside Ji-Hoon during the entire ceremony, holding his hand without letting go. Amber stayed close to V. When the vows ended, the priest asked if anyone objected. No one spoke. Because no one could deny what had already been decided long before that day. They were already a family. That evening, after the guests left, the house was quiet. Asher laughed loudly while sitting on Ji-Hoon's lap. It was the first time he had ever looked fully relaxed. Amber stood near the table, watching them. Then she walked slowly toward Ji-Hoon. Everyone stopped talking. She looked up at him. Her voice was soft but clear. It was the first full sentence she had ever spoken to him. I love you, Daddy. Ji-Hoon froze. V covered her mouth. Asher turned immediately. Ji-Hoon lowered himself in front of Amber. His eyes filled instantly. He didn't try to hide it. He just nodded. I love you too. Amber didn't step back. She stayed there. And for the first time, Ji-Hoon felt like he had finally been allowed to come home. Not to a house. Not to a title. But to a life he had once destroyed and was now allowed to rebuild. If this story stayed with you, like the video and subscribe for more emotional stories like this. And tell me in the comments, if you were V, would you have forgiven Ji-Hoon after everything or walked away forever?